From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson.
And hi, everybody. My name's Eric Rosen, and I'm glad to be back on the air.
We're very happy to be back on the air after having that special show given to you just a week ago tonight. We certainly hope that you enjoyed that special show. And I want to give a special word of thanks to everyone involved in that race, from Jeff Benjamin to Rod Dixon to Michael McVeigh to everyone that was involved. Thank you so much for your time. It was a wonderful experience covering that 5K race. Now on to bigger and better things. Kenny Graham is on the other side of the glass, and we're taking phone calls tonight at 718-727-0143. And in case you missed tonight's episode, you can catch us online on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, and you can also contact us through Instagram. And we have a lot of stuff to discuss.
As you can
specifically, as from all the trees that you killed, which turned into paper. The playoffs are in their conference final stage, and of course, the Yankees and Mets are barely a month and a half into the season.
Yes, let's start, of course, with the playoffs. And what's really
Basically getting down to the nitty-gritty. The Eastern Conference and Western Conference playoffs, where do we go to first? Do we go to the NBA first, or do we go to the NHL?
Let's go to the NBA, starting with the 7-game series. That was the Miami Heat, Toronto Raptors. In Game 1, Goran Dragic scores 26 points, 7 of 24 points from Dwayne Wade in overtime. They win 102-96. The second game goes to overtime. This time, it's the Toronto Raptors that win with DeMar Carroll's 21 points, Valanciunas double-double on 15 and 12. They win 96-92. Game 3 in Miami, Kyle Lowry, 11 for 19 shooting, 33 points, leading them to a 95-91 victory for the Raptors. That's a 2-1 series lead. Game 4, yet another overtime experience, and this time it was the Miami Heat who tied the series with Wade's 30-point performance, winning 94-87. Game 5 comes into play. DeMar DeRozan, a playoff high, 34 points. They win 99-91, so they're up 3-2, heading into Game 6 in Miami. It was Friday night. They needed this victory in order to force the Game 7 in Toronto, and guess what? Goran Dragic, who they acquired from Phoenix, came in the clutch with a postseason career-high 30 points, 22 for Dwayne Wade, despite Kyle Lowry's 12-17 performance for Toronto. Miami wins 103-91, forcing Game 7. Then came Sunday.
Yep, then came Game 7, and speaking of clutch, Kyle Lowry has proven to be a very clutch player for the Raptors. He comes away with a 30-point game.
And 28 from DeMar Carroll, his crime partner.
And DeMar DeRozan, who slowly but surely has become one of the top backcourt guys in the league, becomes a really big supporting player for them. Just to give you an idea how high his stock has risen, I'm hearing DeMar DeRozan to the Laker rumors already. He grew up in Los Angeles. He played a year at USC. He made it loud and clear he wants to play in his hometown of L.A. next season.
And he played for the Kings, I believe, before he went to the Raptors, and that's,
Actually, DeMar DeRozan has been a Raptor his entire career, which is now in its 7th season. But right now, Kyle Lowry is the guy that makes the Raptors go.
And what about Bismack Biyombo, who really had a great double-double performance, 17 points, 16 rebounds in Game 7 yesterday. He really had an impact in this game, too. And they ended up winning 116-89 to go to their Toronto's first ever Eastern Conference Finals.
Who saw Bismack Biyombo turn into the role player that he's been for the Raptors? I remember when he played 3 years in Charlotte, he could barely get out of his own way. But now 2 years with the Raptors, he's become a real role player for them.
That was when they were the Bobcats, and that was not the best history ever, when they were the Bobcats. But you know what? For Bismack to come to Toronto, contribute the way he's been doing right now, he could really play a big part in the finals. And who are they playing? None other than the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yep, the same Cleveland Cavaliers who have swept their way into the Eastern Conference Finals. Had no trouble with the Pistons, had no trouble with the Hawks, although a couple of those games were pretty tough. Now
the 3-point shooting that game, like J.R. Smith in Game 2 had 7 3-pointers. That's they lived and died by the 3-pointer, and they won in 4 straight games, as you mentioned. Kevin Love even has contributed very well for them.
And most importantly, you mentioned Kevin Love. What about Kyrie Irving? The same Kyrie Irving who was missing from the finals last year after he hurt his, I think it was either his knee or his foot. And also Kevin Love, who was missing for the majority of the playoffs because he basically had his shoulder separated by Kelly Olynyk in the Celtics series. Now those two guys are 100% full strength. Could it be that this could be the time that we see the Cavaliers really make a serious run at the title? Because they've been literally unbeatable lately.
Well, if I'm Toronto and I want to beat Cleveland, here's what I do. I take away their best weapon, the 3-pointer. That's really, you take out J.R. Smith. You really stop him from being a contributor from beyond the arc. 2, you really got to make sure that the big 3, Love, James, and of course Irving, don't have as much of an impact or don't have a great game. That's where Valanciunas, if he's healthy, will have to come, if he's able to play.
Yeah, and Jonas Valanciunas really hurt his ankle badly in the Heat series. There's no guarantee that he's even going to return for any playoff game for the rest of the year.
But you know what? Not just that. How about Biyombo? That's where he'll have to contribute yet again, like he did in Game 7. And Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan are going to have the backcourt performance of the century.
Yeah.
In order to beat the Cavaliers and advance to the finals, NBA Finals for the first time. This is the first time they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals. If they can beat the Cavaliers, I honestly think they could give whoever wins the Western Conference Finals a serious run for their money. Now, if I'm a betting person, though, and I'm going to pick a team, honestly, how can I go against King James?
Yeah.
Really, how can I go against one of the greatest players of all time?
You mentioned trying to cut down the 3-point shooting. If I'm the Raptors, I would do something to try and cut down on the Cavaliers' transition game, too, because that's where LeBron James is really at his most dangerous, which means take your chances and try and make him a jump shooter, because historically he has not been that great of a perimeter shooter. So I would try and take my chances to make him strictly a jump shooter and try and get as much positioning underneath as possible. And also position yourself against Kevin Love. Kevin Love is a dynamic rebounder. And while you're at it, see if you can isolate him one-on-one defensively, because Kevin Love does not play great defense at all. And the point guard situation, you have Kyrie Irving, a guy who, when he's healthy, can emerge as one of the top point guards in the league. There's also Kyle Lowry, a guy who, before he got to Toronto, was a real journeyman. He didn't really know where he could fit in as a point guard in this game. Now he's found a home in the Raptors' backcourt. Whereas Irving is a lot more of a playmaking type point guard, I think Irving is a little bit more of the go-to guy that the Raptors have to focus on in order to try and get themselves into the next round.
And if the Cavs want to win,
if the Cavs want to win, give the ball to your best player, please.
Actually, you take out Lowry and DeRozan's ability to shoot from the backcourt. The same way that they were in the first series, that they had to go to Game 7 in both their series to get to this point. They had to, and literally in the first series they had in the first round, in the first 2 games, I recall, Lowry and DeRozan were useless. They were made useless. That's what Cleveland will have to do in order to win, is make Lowry and DeRozan useless.
This is where Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith come in for the Cavaliers. Iman Shumpert is one of their best defensive players.
You mean the guy from Kid and Play?
Yeah, the guy from Kid and Play, the dude with the high top fade. But seriously, this is where Iman Shumpert comes in. Shut down both of those guys defensively. I would see Shumpert, who is about 6'6" or 6'7", going up against the 6'7" DeRozan in the backcourt and really match up well with him.
And I think the reason why Miami lost, honestly, they tried to use very little players, at least 8 players they tried to use. And
this is where they really missed Chris Bosh badly.
Yep.
And now I'm hearing there's a chance Chris Bosh may not even play a game again because of his recurring problems with blood clots.
I am not shocked to hear that. Honestly, the guy should quit. I know it's hard. It's not nice to say something like that to a guy who's been a proud basketball player his whole career, especially the fact that he started his career with the Toronto Raptors that propelled him to the big contract that he had with Miami eventually, and of course an NBA championship. But the point is, his life is more important than his money.
Not only that, but he's made plenty of money to the point where he can retire now if he really wanted to. But
and get a smart accountant.
Knowing how competitive of a player Chris Bosh is, he's not going to let this thing go. He's going to try and look for the best doctors possible that can do something to try and cure him of these blood clots.
Or get the NBA Players Union to fight on his behalf to reinstate him.
Yeah.
Because believe me, knowing him, he'll probably go that route if he wants to play again. But if I'm the Players Association, and if you care about player safety, then you would seriously not take on Bosch's case and tell him, as much as we would like to help you, Bosch, your life, again, more important than you wanting to play basketball.
Yeah. Not only that, but Dwayne Wade's going to be a free agent this summer. Is this the last that we've seen of Dwayne Wade in a Miami Heat uniform?
No.
Or is this the last that we've seen of Dwayne Wade as a basketball player, period?
I think he's got another year, maybe a 1-year contract with a year option. Maybe they'll give him. But really,
and he's become the face of the franchise too.
But the person they're going to have to build around is Goran Dragic and Justice Winslow.
Yeah.
I think those two are going to be the future. Especially Winslow is going to be the future of that Heat franchise for years to come.
And half the Heat's roster consists of free agents. It's Wade, it's Udonis Haslem, who's been Dwayne Wade's teammate for the last 13 years, and 5 other guys that they have to consider whether they want to bring back next year or not. But right now, Dwayne Wade is just too good of a player, even at 34, for him to try and just call it a career. I think he returns for at least another season, and it would just be a little too strange seeing him in another uniform.
As for the Atlanta Hawks and Mike Budenholzer, there's a contract situation, I believe, with Paul Millsap and the rest of that squad, too.
Al Horford's a free agent on the Hawks, too. I'm already hearing Al Horford to the Rockets rumors.
Honestly, that would be a bit of an improvement over,
it'd be a much of an improvement over Dwight Howard.
Oh, without a doubt. And him and Howard and Harden actually would get along very well. I think they would get along. They would play great together. I think it would really make the Rockets a contender.
Possibly.
As for Paul Millsap, what team would fit him the best?
It would have to be a team that's suitable to his style, because Paul Millsap is a real grinder of a player. In a way, he kind of reminds me of Charles Oakley, only a little bit more slim, because Charles was a big, burly, powerful guy back in his playing days. But Millsap is just as tough defensively and just as much of a dirty work kind of player as Charles Oakley is.
Maybe the Detroit Pistons.
Possibly.
Honestly, they could maybe use a grinder like him. Or if there's a team out there, maybe the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Possibly. The Timberwolves are a team to look for right now. And speaking of the Timberwolves, Karl Anthony Towns was named the Rookie of the Year earlier today.
And not only that, congratulations to him, but Stephen Curry was named the first ever unanimous MVP for the NBA, which is...
Should we be even surprised at that notion, him being a unanimous choice? Because think about it. 79 out of the 82 games that he played in the regular season. If he doesn't play any of those games, I don't think the Warriors reach 40 to 45 wins this season.
He really set the tone for the team. Yes, you had Klay Thompson in the playoffs, who played without him, and has been clutch. I'll give him that. But at the same time, Stephen Curry is the motor. He's the engine that keeps the Warriors going. He's really the heartbeat. He's the conductor, honestly.
Yep.
He's the general of that squad that gets all his troops ready to go. And he honestly deserves... He broke his own three-point record this season.
Yeah.
How does somebody do that twice? It's
very easily. When you think about it, not only has Steph become the best player in the league right now, and yes, I said it, Stephen Curry is the best player in the NBA right now. He's also got a hell of a work ethic. A lot of people don't realize this. Why do you think that he's always practicing with dribbling two basketballs at the same time. He's always making his way to the arena bright and early in the day so he could work on his game. He's probably the type of player that can launch about 500 to 1,000 jump shots a day just so he can perfect his craft. And that's also a reason why he broke his own three-point shooting record because, quite frankly, he's just that great.
Oh, without a doubt. And you know what? He was deserving of the award. I congratulate him.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what?
There's also the other postseason awards that were handed out. Jamal Crawford was the sixth man of the year.
Deservedly so.
C.J. McCollum of the Trailblazers was the most improved player of the year.
Another deserved award.
And get this, Steve Kerr, who barely coached half the season, was named Coach of the Year.
Well,
even in spite of the fact that he coached 43 games this year because he was coming back from back surgery, still was named Coach of the Year. And also the defensive player, if I'm not mistaken, I think it went to DeAndre Jordan of the Clippers.
Wow.
And R.C. Buford of the Spurs was the executive of the year.
Well, it just shows you these guys did what they had to do this season. They really deserved it.
And
Now,
you mentioned the Warriors earlier. So far, they have not necessarily cruised, but done what they had to do to get to the Western Conference Finals. They beat the Rockets and they beat the Trailblazers both in 5 games.
Yep, especially the Trailblazers. They beat them 110-99 in Game 2. That was where the injury took place.
Yeah.
Actually, no, that was in the Houston series.
Yeah,
on
the
that
Houston series, I think in Game 3 or 4
Game 3
was when he first got himself hurt.
But Klay Thompson, the other Splash brother, 27 points in that game. Game 3, Damian Lillard had 40 points, a playoff best for him in leading the Trailblazers to 108 victory.
And that's when the Warriors decided to bring back Stephen Curry. And what happens?
17 points in overtime in Game 4, a NBA record, along with the 40 points overall he had in that game. They win 132-125 in overtime and take a 3-1 series lead. And then came Game 5.
If there's any question as to who the best player in the league right now is, that's your answer right there.
Klay Thompson, 6 3-pointers in Game 5, 125, 121. They beat the Trailblazers, ending their chance.
And how did the Oklahoma City Thunder get to be the Warriors' opponent? Well, first off, the Thunder, quite frankly, I thought that they should have swept the Dallas Mavericks, but at least they were able to do what they were supposed to do, which was take care of them in 5 games, and then came the San Antonio Spurs. Everybody thought there was going to be a Warriors versus Spurs Western Conference final.
Because this was a Spurs team that had really just as good, almost a great season like the Warriors. Their home record in particular, with the exception of the one loss at home to Golden State, they were 41 going into this game, and they lost twice at home to Oklahoma City when they took care of their first round series in 4 games.
Yep. The turning point, by far, though, was Game 5 in San Antonio. Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook completely took over. And then came Game 6.
Well, Westbrook nearly had a triple-double. He had 35 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists in that game. Durant with 23 points. They won 95-91 in Game 5.
And then came Game 6. Kevin Durant took that game over. And that's why Thunder wound up winning the series, and that's why they're in the Western Conference Finals right now.
The Thunder almost came back in that fourth quarter. The best chance they had. They were down by 9 points, but yet San Antonio was unrelenting. And it wasn't just Durant and Westbrook. You had Serge Ibaka and Steven Adams, who also contributed too for the Thunder in that series.
What now? Conversely, could we be seeing the swan song of one Tim Duncan? Because there were times when Duncan really looked like he was a 40-year-old athlete.
Except Game 6. Even though it was too little too late, he did have 19 points in that game. But yes, he definitely, for the most part, looked his age, unfortunately, in the series in Games 4 and 5. And right now, I wouldn't be shocked to hear him, and not just him, though. Manu Ginobili, too, could also be.
Manu Ginobili, I think, is approaching his 38th birthday. Tony Parker is the youngster of the Big Three. He's only, I think, 34 years old. But one thing that I know about San Antonio is they know how to retool. They've retooled They already retooled by signing LaMarcus Aldridge last year.
And they got Danny Green, and they got Kawhi Leonard.
Kawhi Leonard, who right now, and that's who I'm thinking of. Kawhi Leonard was named the NBA's Defensive Player of the Year, not DeAndre Jordan. Kawhi Leonard, who right now could be the best defensive player in the entire league today.
He's the future, really, for that Spurs team. That's where they're going to look to rebuild around him. As for Popovich, that guy could coach for how many years he wants.
Yeah.
What he's done to that franchise, the 5 championships he's brought, that guy should coach to whenever he says uncle.
I just wish that he could be a little bit more cooperative with the media. Did you hear about his press conference afterward? Somebody questioning him about his strategy in the last 2 games of the series, and his attitude was, well, don't tell me how to coach.
You can't blame him in a sense, too. I know, yes, it's not exactly the way you would want somebody to answer a member of the media. It's not really nice. But at the same time, he was at a point where he was not exactly thrilled with his team not going further than they should have.
Yeah.
So, and coaches sometimes are so prideful that they don't like when anybody, especially people in the media, question the way they do things. But, yes, sometimes we do question what you did in a certain situation. Why you didn't put that player on the court? Why didn't you have the pick and roll take place in that situation, or this or that? Sometimes, yes, we do question, but coaches naturally do not want to hear it. They just want to go home and lick their wounds, realize what happened, and then come up with a game plan for next year. And that's what Popovich will do.
Now,
what about the Trailblazers?
As far as the Trailblazers are concerned, did anybody even see the Trailblazers even getting to this point? Especially after losing all of the players that they did last season.
Lopez, Aldridge.
Also, Aaron Aflalo. Well, not Aaron Aflalo because he was in Denver, but losing Lopez, losing LaMarcus Aldridge, trading away Nicholas Batum to Charlotte. There was still that one constant that people forgot about. That was Damian Lillard.
Oklahoma City's favorite son. No, Oakland's favorite son.
Yep, Damian Lillard, Oakland's favorite son, by way of Weber State. That's where he really made his legend grow. But everybody forgot Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum were still the 2 best players that were left over from the roster from the year before. And somehow they were able to put together a really good, young, talented squad and make it this far. Not only that, but some really brilliant coaching by Terry Stotts, a guy who's been around the block for more than his share of years, was able to put together a really good chemistry-building team this season.
Portland will always be in the race for the championship, so don't be surprised next year to see them in the playoff hunt next year.
I would still like to see them add a couple more pieces, though. For example, now that Brook Lopez is gone, let's see them add another big man. And that's another thing. Mason Plumlee, the ex-Net, really turned out to be one of their best dirty work guys this season.
Yep. And and maybe let's see what they can do in the draft as well.
Yeah.
Where they can add, depending on where they're positioning in the draft.
Add a little bit more depth, because right now, depth on the front line is where they're really, really lacking. Now, as far as the Western Conference Finals, some are saying this could be one of the best Western Conference Finals ever.
I think it is. I think this is going the entire distance, all 7 games. I'm still going with Oakland. Golden State, sorry. I know they're in Oakland.
They're based in Oakland, but pretty soon San Francisco is going to be their home because, let's see, I think it's supposed to be this year or next year that they break ground on their brand new arena, which is going to be called the Chase Center in San Francisco.
I feel bad for the people of the Oracle Arena. They're going to lose something that's, honestly, that's a nice arena than across the street, the county, the Sewage City, USA.
Yeah. Can you imagine Oakland losing not 1 but 2 franchises? They're this close to losing the Raiders.
To Vegas.
To Las Vegas, if you can imagine that. Well, the move to San Francisco has already been set in stone. They're going to break ground on the Chase Center, which is going to be either this summer or next summer, for it to be in time to start the 2019-20 season.
That city is going to be so pissed off. It's not even funny whatsoever.
As if there wasn't any bad blood between the people of San Francisco and Oakland already, specifically the fans who've never liked each other. Now there's a possibility they're going to lose not one, but two franchises.
As for the finals itself, really, if the key for Golden State to win this series against Oklahoma City, you really got to keep your eye on Westbrook and Durant.
Yeah.
That's where Klay Thompson's going to have to really do a great job guarding Westbrook.
This is also where the Warriors' defense comes in, because Russell Westbrook has had a bad habit of committing turnovers here and there. This is where the defense should spark their offense. Try and get a little transition game going, which can lead to more three-point shooting and more fast break layups or dunks.
And if I'm Oklahoma City, I take away, just like with Cleveland, you take away their ability to shoot from three.
And what do? Get the ball out of Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson's hands. They are two of the biggest three-point shooters on that roster.
Why do you think they call them the Splash Brothers?
Because every time they throw the ball up in the air, it goes splash right through the net. It seems like for them to shoot the ball the way they do, it's like they're throwing the ball into the Pacific Ocean. It's that easy for them.
Right? So in the end, I'm still going with Golden State to win in 7 games. It's going to be a very, very tough series. This is going to really come down to the transition game, turnovers, and really Oklahoma City trying to defend at the 3-point.
I like Golden State as well, although I think it's going to be a 6-game series, which means for the second straight year, we've got a Golden State versus Cleveland NBA Finals.
And but we'll get into that. We'll get into finals when that concludes. Now,
speaking of conference finals, there's the matter of the Stanley Cup.
Let's get into
conference finals.
The semifinals of the Islanders, who unfortunately their season ended at the hands of the Lightning, losing 5-4 in overtime and 2-1 overtime.
That was the turning point to the Islanders' end of the season. They blew a lead with 38 seconds left in Game 3, blew another third-period lead in Game 4, lost each time, and then Tampa took care of matters in Game 5. Right now, except for maybe Pittsburgh, Tampa is the best team in the playoffs because they've been able to take care of business. In spite of the fact that they've lost Anton Strawman, Steven Stamkos,
blood clot,
and also now Ben Bishop, who had to be carried off on a stretcher in the first game of the Pittsburgh series.
12 minutes and 40 seconds in the first period.
Tampa has been able to get so much scoring from a lot of the role players that they have.
It was Tampa. Yeah, like you said, it's not. Tampa Bay has such great depth on the squad. You know, you mentioned the injuries that especially Stamkos and Strawman, were out long before the playoffs even began.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Ben Bishop, their 6'7" stalwart at goaltender. You know, last year he actually was injured. Mm-hmm. Let's not forget, in the Stanley Cup Finals, this guy that had to replace him in Game 1, Vasilevsky, had to do the same thing for Tampa Bay last year.
Mm-hmm.
Young Russian guy who's got some years ahead of him. Maybe one day will be a starter on a team. But for now, when I'm talking about the depth on Tampa Bay, you got Nikita Kucherov, who's really been a part of that triplets organization that they have. Andrej Palat, Tyler Johnson, Victor Hedman, probably one of the best defensemen, who scored 2 goals in Game 5 against the Islanders. You have all these, and even Callahan, the ex-Ranger that's still on, and Brian Boyle.
Mm-hmm.
They got all this depth on this Tampa Bay squad.
Yeah.
Fast, probably the youngest team in all the NHL playoffs. And they're going against a Pittsburgh team that took care of the President's Trophy winning Washington Capitals. Again, what is it going to take for the Capitals with Ovechkin to get beyond the second round?
I don't even think Alex Ovechkin can answer that question. Because, as you heard from his press conference, there seems to be something missing with that team. I don't know what it is.
I don't know either. Cause
they cannot get past the second round. That's why I say the Washington Capitals are right up there with the St. Louis Blues and the Atlanta Hawks as being the biggest teases, and to a lesser extent the Atlanta Falcons too, as probably being the biggest teases in professional sports when it comes to playoff time.
And the President's Trophy doesn't guarantee you getting to the cup. The furthest that a President's Trophy team made it all the way was the 2011 Vancouver Canucks, and they lost to the Boston Bruins in 7 games.
Actually, you can even think back a little bit further. One team that won the President's Trophy and won it all, our neck of the woods, the Rangers, 22 years ago.
94. That's right. They beat the Vancouver Canucks.
That's right.
Ironic, both times the Canucks we mentioned. But in this instance right here, they had Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. We mentioned the injury to Ben Bishop, that freak leg injury, but the x-rays were negative. We don't know. Tonight is Game 2 in about a half hour from now in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's down 1-0. Why? They lost 3-1 several ways. If you look at Alex Killorn, they struck 18:46 into the first period. Alex Killorn slipped behind Ali Mata, their all-star defenseman, and fired a shot between Murray's legs. Then Andrej Palat, 2 minutes and 33 seconds into the second period, gets a shot when Valtteri Filppula's slap shot smacks off Murray's pads, and he gets the rebound. And then Jonathan Drouin on a 3-on-2 play gets a feed from Palat into the open net. They win 3-1. What will it take for the Penguins to even the series tonight?
A win.
But
for lack of a better word, just a win. But how do they win?
Yeah.
Get more production from Sidney Crosby. And also get more production from some of the younger players that they had, like they did in the first 2 rounds against the Rangers and Capitals. Use their quickness like they did in the first 2 rounds against the Rangers and Capitals that enabled them to get this far.
I don't think it's really going to be Crosby that will be the X factor time. To me, I think it's Patrick Hornquist. Look for him tonight to really have a breakout performance. I think the Penguins will win tonight's game, even the series up. Now let's go into the Western Conference semifinals, starting with the Dallas Stars St. Louis Blues series.
Yep.
And Alexander Steen and David Backes each had 2 goals in Game 3 to lead the Blues to a 6-1 victory. Then Cody Eakin scores the game-winning goal for Dallas in Game 4. In overtime, they win 3-2. Game 4, of course, and it was the Blues who beat the Dallas Stars 4-1, and unbelievable performance. Game 6, Matthias Jarmek leads a huge victory for the Dallas Stars. They win 3-2.
And it was right then and there where everyone started to question the Blues once again. Can they win the big game in the Stanley Cup playoffs? And finally, they were able to do that in Game 7. And it was in blowout fashion. They went to Dallas, beat the Stars 6-1. Now they're in their first Western Conference final in 15 years against a rather veteran group of San Jose Sharks that has Joe Thornton, Patrick Marleau, and a whole bunch of other players. Thornton right now has become basically the face of the Sharks franchise.
And they took care of the Nashville Predators in 7 games too, including at the very end. They won 5-0 in blowout fashion. Joe Pavelski. You mentioned Joe Thornton. Joe Pavelski, Logan Couture, and Matt Jones, their goaltender, up against Brian Elliott.
Yep.
This is going to be an epic matchup, to say the least.
And the Blues already got off to a quick start by winning Game 1 last night, 2-1.
Yeah, it was David Backes who really another stalwart for the Blues, along with Joey Lettera. They scored to win this game 2-1. They're up 1-0 St. Louis. What will it take tomorrow night for Dallas to get back into the series tomorrow? No, not Dallas. I'm sorry, for San Jose to get back into the series tomorrow night.
Well, for one, get more production from their line, and also get a little bit better game between the pipes from their goalie.
Yeah, Matt Jones is really going to have a better performance tomorrow night against.
Not that he wasn't terrible. I mean, whenever you give up 2 goals in a game, you can. Yep. Chances are you have a really good shot of staying in the game. But just last night, they did not get the production whatsoever from their front line at all. And that's where the front line really has to come up big for them.
If you had to choose which 2 teams are going to go to the Stanley Cup.
I still like Pittsburgh coming out of the Eastern Conference. Right now, they're the best team by far. If I had to pick who comes out of the West, that's probably the more intriguing matchup. San Jose, which has been a little bit up and down as a playoff performer against the St. Louis squad. That's been a relative tease. But if I had to choose, I still like St. Louis. My sentimental pick is St. Louis. By the way, this brings up a really good trivia question. Who is the only expansion team to ever make the Stanley Cup Finals in their first season in the NHL?
The St. Louis Blues.
That's right. In fact, they made the finals their first 3 years of existence, 1968 until 1970. And in those days, the league expanded from 12 teams to about 20 teams in the league, and they put in a rule in which at least one expansion team had to make the playoffs as kind of a goodwill gesture to the new kids on the block. And the Blues wound up making it 3 years in a row, wound up losing each time, but it gave them enough of a foundation to try and build a really better franchise for the near future.
So they were the original Buffalo Bills.
They were the original Buffalo Bills. They made the finals 3 years in a row and lost each time.
That's, it's crazy. The same thing with Buffalo when they made the 4 straight Super Bowls and yet couldn't win one. So, But in this particular situation, if I had to pick, I am going to go with Pittsburgh as well. I'm going with them in 7, however. And like I said, even with Bishop possibly not being able to play tonight, do not be easily fooled by Vasilevsky. I think he's probably one of the best backups you could have at goaltender, and he was in the Stanley Cup last year for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So this guy knows how to face pressure. But I'm thinking tonight Pittsburgh will even the series. I think it's going to go all the way to 7. Pittsburgh wins it in huge fashion. As for the Western Conference Series, if I had to pick, I'm going to go with, I'm changing my, originally it was the Blues, but you know what? I'm thinking the San Jose Sharks are going to pull up an upset of the century, too. This is a team that had 28 victories on the road, the most in the NHL. Yes, yet they couldn't win a single road game in the Nashville series.
Yep.
They had to do a lot of traveling this time. They're still going to do some traveling. I think they're going to take some of the games in San Jose. I'm going for them to even the series tomorrow night.
There you go.
Now let's go to the sports skinny. UFC 198 took place this past Saturday from the Arena de Baixada in Curitiba, Brazil. UFC heavyweight action. Stipe Miocic gets a huge knockout punch victory in the first round, 247, to become the new champion, defeating Fabricio Verdum. And he is from Cleveland, the Cleveland, Ohio area. He's the first person to win a championship from the city of Cleveland in over 50 years.
Yep.
Congratulations, Stipe. Let's see what you can do in your next title fight. The middleweight, Ronaldo Souza defeats, of course, Vitor Belfort, another legendary fighter, in the first round by TKO punches.
All right.
And making her debut, Christian Cyborg Justino, in 81 seconds, takes care of Leslie Smith by TKO punches.
Quite frankly, did anyone foresee her having a tough time, except maybe in those first 81 seconds? Of course, she just got back, so she's going to be needing a little bit more stamina and a little bit more of her feet getting wet in order to try and really make it back on the comeback trail. But this is as good a start for her as anything.
And she did it in front of her hometown fans. She is from Curitiba. And not only is she from Curitiba, I believe Mauricio Rua, too.
Right.
Shogun. Yeah, he beat Corey Anderson in light heavyweight action by split decision. And Brian Barberena, not Barbereno,
Not to be confused with Vinny Barberino.
I know. Defeated Warley Alves by unanimous decision. The next view is UFC 199 June, but the big one, coming July, UFC 200. 3 title fights in one night. Jose Aldo, John Bones Jones to unify the light heavyweight championship. Cannot wait. As for some other action coming up, the PGA Players Championship was this past Sunday. Jason Day, the wire-to-wire champion, wins his 7th championship in 10 months with a 1 under 71 on the 4th round. And wins $1.89 million. He actually had the biggest moment was on the 10th and 12th hole where he birdied on those holes and on the par 3 17th island. You ever saw TPC Sawgrass?
Probably once before.
You ever see that one island on the 17th?
Yes, I have.
That's what happened this past weekend. In fact, there was one player, Russell Knox, took him 9 shots.
Wow.
And he fell in the water a few times too. And
Amazing.
that's happened several times. It's not an easy hole. It can be very frustrating. Congratulations, Jason Day, Australia's gift to golf. Now, for the Sprint Cup NASCAR Drive for Autism, of course, Matt Kenseth holds off Kyle Larson and wins his first race in 17 starts. Third person from Joe Gibbs Racing to win on the season. As for the Kentucky Derby, of course, Nyquist by 1.25 lengths, and 1.25 lengths, defeats Exaggerator to win his 8th race in 8 starts. Coming up this Saturday, the second race, the Preakness from Pimlico Racetrack in Baltimore. Can he do it?
Can he do it? Yes. Will he do it? It's just a matter of time before we find out if he can.
As for the Championship Sunday, of course, the Premier League action. 112 years for the history of this one club. Finally, they win a championship. I'm talking about none other than the Foxes of Leicester City.
Who saw this happening, to be honest with you? Leicester City was a team that really struggled between the Premier League and relegation in years past. Finally, they put together a good, solid team. They really took everybody by surprise when you think about it.
It was probably, they were, I think, by betting, if you betted on them, they were a 5,000 to 1 odds favorite of winning the Premier League. So
this probably could go down in history as one of the biggest upsets in professional sports history.
Oh, with that,
and probably the biggest surprise. Leicester City, the 5,000 to 1 shot, winning the Premier League. It's basically like the equivalent of maybe the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series.
And it was really huge, and this entire weekend, it was one of the craziest. I'm hoping for the people of Old Trafford that everything is all right. They had to, of course, cancel the game for the Manchester United squad because of a suspected device that was, of course, destabilized, if you will. Nothing happened. The fans got out, and the players got out in time to safety. So everything is all right. Safety comes before sports, so at least the fans are okay there. As for the entire Premier League season, Tottenham is in the top 4 too. They made it to the European Championships as well, and they lost to my favorite team, the Newcastle United, yesterday, 5-1. As for WWE Extreme Rules, and it's going extreme this Sunday from the Rock in New Jersey.
Extreme Rules taking place. As far as how the card is going to go, let's see. They have, if I'm not mistaken, 3 championship matches taking place. Of course, there's the main title, Roman Reigns and AJ Styles. There's also Natalya facing off against Charlotte for the women's title. That's going to be a submission match. Kalisto taking on Rusev for the United States title, and the tag team title is on the line as the New Day takes on the Vaudevillains. And then there's a fatal 4-way match for the Intercontinental title. It's The Miz, Kevin Owens, Cesaro, and Sami Zayn completing the 5 spot for all of the championships.
Those are not going to be the only matches. Tonight's the final Raw before Extreme Rules, so we're probably going to be hearing more matches. They usually like to have 7 or 8 matches in the main card and then maybe a match or 2 in the pre-show card. But as for predicting these matches, I'm thinking Roman Reigns retains his title. I think the caveat is going to be Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson are going to come in and interfere for Roman Reigns. They worked with AJ Styles in New Japan Pro Wrestling as members of the Bullet Club.
Yep.
So I think
Luke Gallows has had quite a trial for WWE. He was Festus for a little bit, and then he was rolling with CM Punk's crew for a little while, and now he's finally been given a shot to branch out on his own, so to speak.
Well, actually, he's with Carl Anderson. They were really a great I think they could be a really great tag team together. As for the tag team championships, I know you don't like the New Day. Believe me, I would. I
don't like their gimmick. I don't like the gimmick. It's a total waste of time and their talents. Quite frankly, I think it's a little insulting to a really good wrestler like Kofi Kingston to have to go through something like that.
Well, have no fear, because I think their championship run ends this weekend. And the team that's going to do it is the Vaudevillains. I like the Vaudevillains. They are a throwback to the old style traditional wrestling. Simon Gotch and Aiden English. They came up through the NXT rankings. They are exciting to watch. They have great chemistry with each other. They're very strong. They are a new wave of tag team. What's old is new again with these guys. As for the submission match, Charlotte's going to win.
Yeah.
Ric Flair's been banned from ringside in this match, but it really doesn't matter.
Yep. Just to give you an idea, Charlotte and her dad have become quite the stars outside of the ring, too, because they most recently threw out the first pitches at a game at Wrigley Field.
Which is an honor. That, along with doing the 7th inning stretch song at Wrigley Field, probably the 2 biggest honors you can get at that stadium.
Did you know that Charlotte was at one time a really established volleyball player?
I'm not shocked. She's very tall, athletic, built, beautiful.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think she played collegiately at Appalachian State and then at North Carolina State for a time.
Well, she's from the area.
Born and raised in Charlotte.
That's why her name, for the city, and of course, from the Queen City, as they call it. But you know what? Charlotte, I love her athletic skill. I think she'll end her feud with Natalya at this match, and she's going to move on to probably Sasha Banks when all is said and done. Kalisto, I think, will lose to Rusev.
Yeah.
Why? Here's the surprise I think it's going to be happening. Kalisto's tag team partner, Sin Cara, is going to interfere in the match, and those two are going to be in an all-out Lucha Libre feud.
Interesting.
And then for the Fatal 4-Way, I'm going with Cesaro to win the title.
All right.
I don't think he's never, ever won the Intercontinental Championship in his career. He's a great wrestler.
Yeah.
Athletically built, gifted, fast. He's very inventive, quick on his feet. And so is Sami Zayn, too. And what I got to say about Kevin Owens, for a guy who weighs so many pounds and has a beer belly. Sorry, I know that's not nice to say. He does have a big belly, but don't let that fool you. This guy can do things that people weigh less than him can do. He's very gifted. As for The Miz, who he has back now? Maurice.
Yeah.
Not that I don't like seeing Maurice. I love seeing the dominatrix outfit she wears.
Yep.
But I'm going with Cesaro to win. As for baseball this past week.
Yeah, baseball this past week. You see me with the Met gear on. What a disaster the Mets had in Denver over the weekend.
And in Los Angeles.
Well, in Los Angeles, it wasn't completely terrible. The same thing with San Diego, too. At least they were able to split those 4-game series with the Padres and the Dodgers. But the way things turned out in Denver was just a complete and utter disaster. Twice, they wound up having games robbed of them because of lousy umpires' calls, especially
Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah, I saw the replay of that. How can you possibly say that there was a foul tip there? The guy barely even touched the ball with the end of his bat. And then calling Juan Lagares out for being out of the base pads, I could understand if he had stepped on the grass, on the infield grass. He was nowhere near the infield grass. And because of that, it wound up taking away a potential Met rally.
I know, they lost 7-4 in that game, and they lost 5-2. John Gray, who never won a single game in his career, won his first career Major League Baseball game in 9 tries on Friday. Sunday, though, had to been the pièce de résistance of crap for the Mets when Ryan Rayburn with the go-ahead 2-run homer in the 7th inning, and they lose 4-3.
Yeah, it was just a tough time all around for the Mets. Now all they can do is just move on from that and focus on their homestand, which features the Nationals and the Brewers coming up. First things first.
I'm going tomorrow night, in fact, with my mom. We got some really awesome seats because of a very good friend, Frank Wilkinson from Rabs Country Bowling Lanes. Thank you so much for those tickets, my man. You're awesome. And
as far as the Yankees are concerned, they had probably the most important homestand of their season, and it's only May. And they were able to take 2 out of 3 from the Red Sox, take 3 out of 4 from the world champions, the Royals, and then take another 2 out of 3 from this really good White Sox team that's been playing some of the best baseball this season. Now comes the hard part. 17 games out of their next 20 are on the road.
And they start tonight in the desert at 9:40 against the Diamondbacks in a 3-game set, and then they got to go 4 games at the sewage known as Oakland County Coliseum.
Mm-hmm. Now it's the O.co Coliseum.
Yeah.
But this is a really, really big road trip coming up for the Yankees, especially when you consider that they still have had a few problems trying to score some runs. And they're still trying to get their starting pitching in order. At least we've been able to see a little bit of their future because, for one, Gary Sanchez finally made his Major League debut. Only played in 1 game and got sent right back to Scranton Wilkes-Barre. But the Yankees were able to see exactly what this kid has for his future. They were also able to call up Ben Gamble from the minor leagues. He made his Major League debut. Had a cup of coffee with them. Now is about to go back to the minor leagues. Called up 2 pitching prospects who had not even made the majors before.
There's another one tonight for the Yankees. It was supposed to be Michael Pineda actually tonight, and it's not. They're skipping him tonight as well. Speaking of pitchers, today Steve Matz, according to the Newsday, met with his doctor today, and the prognosis is good.
Yeah.
He should not be out for a long time. He will be able to play. So at least right there, the fans can breathe with a sigh of relief knowing that Matz won't be out for an extended time.
We would be remiss if we did not mention the historic moment that took place during the Mets road trip. And I think you should know by now exactly what I'm referring to. Not only was it an historic moment, it was probably the single most hysterical moment in baseball this year.
Oh, the home run by Bartolo Colon.
The home run by Bartolo Colon. This is his 19th Major League season, and he hit his first Major League home run. If you had just heard, did you hear the call that Gary Cohen made on Channel 11? He basically channeled his inner Vince Scully, saying that the impossible has happened.
Which was crazy to say the least, to see that happen.
I couldn't stop laughing. This is Bartolo Colon we're talking about. The same Bartolo Colon who takes about 5 minutes getting from home plate to first base on a ground ball.
It was definitely one of the most historical moments that took place since we were off the air the last few weeks. I was really thrilled to see that happen and to see his teammates escape from the bullpen, from the dugout, and then come and greet him like a hero. He was the oldest person in baseball history to his first home run at the age of 40, just before his 43rd birthday. And speaking of historic, this past week has been really crazy in terms of history. This past Thursday night, I believe it was for the Nationals against Detroit, and one Max Scherzer, who I will be seeing tomorrow night, threw had a 20 strikeout performance, complete game for the Nationals.
That's right.
Only the 5th pitcher in Major League Baseball history to do such a thing. That's 18. Yeah, there have been 18 more pitchers who threw perfect games than that.
That's right. This begs the question: which do you feel is the more impressive feat for a pitcher? Throwing a no-hitter / perfect game, or striking out 20 batters in a 9-inning game?
That was definitely impressive. But what about Kershaw? He's gone 5 straight games with 10-plus strikeouts. Chris Sale became the first pitcher on the season with 8 victories. David Price has resurged back for the Red Sox.
Although he's been getting a lot of run support to keep him undefeated.
And Jake Arrieta this year had his second no-hitter in his last 11 starts.
Speaking of Jake Arrieta and Chris Sale, who would have ever thought that the city of Chicago would be the epicenter of baseball right now? 2 first-place teams. Dare we say White Sox versus Cubs in the World Series?
That would tear the North and South Side apart. I would love to be there. Get me a Uno Pizzeria.
Oh, wow.
And Al's Italian Mr. Beef sandwich. a super dog, and I'm ready to go to Chicago on the Navy Pier and watch these two teams light it up like the 4th of July. This is an epic showdown that I think we all would love to see happen. In fact, if my Mets don't win, I would be glad to see either the White Sox. Actually, I would really want to see the Cubs break that drought.
Yeah. Quite frankly, this is the first time in a long, long time, I would say maybe since World War II, the end of World War II, where we could say that the Cubs' best shot to win the World Series is fill in the blank. And right now, the Cubs' best shot to win the World Series, which, by the way, would be their first championship in 108 years, is this year.
And did you hear what Garrett Cole, the starting pitcher of the Pittsburgh Pirates, said that the Cubs are not that good?
Obviously, he doesn't know what he's talking about because he's dismissing the fact that the Cubs are loaded with starting pitching, have a really dangerous batting order.
Do you know they're number 1 in starters ERA and overall team ERA? They're number 1 in the top 5 in every offensive category: total run production, average runners in scoring position, batting average. Like Garrett Cole, I cannot wait till when Garrett Cole has to face his Cubs team and they rock him for many runs.
Granted, we've got another 5.5 months left in the season, but right now, the Cubs are the best team in baseball.
You know, really, I know he's 8-2 in 11 career starts against the Cubs, but still, what he said is blasphemy right now this year.
I don't know if it's just jealousy or maybe he must know something that nobody else does, but again, the Cubs are the best team in baseball right now.
And Julius Chasson was traded from the Braves to the pitching-starved Los Angeles Angels. The Braves had not even cracked double-digit victories.
We kind of saw that the Braves were going to be in for a rebuilding mode, but who thought that they would be this dreadful?
But they're dreadful, but the rest of that NL East is probably the most competitive if you look at it.
Right now, it's the Nationals, the Phillies. Yes, the Philadelphia Phillies are over 500, and they're playing good baseball right now. Then the Mets, then the Marlins, and then the Braves bring up the rear.
I know, they really do. Like the Marlins. You know, it's impressive. What's impressive about them is Marcell Ozuna in the outfield. He's really been hitting very well, of course. That whole trio in the outfield with Christian Yelich and Giancarlo Stanton is impressive, to say the least. And Jose Fernandez, he had 2 victories this past week. He's really the true ace of that rotation. Conley and even who they brought, Wei Chen, who they acquired this offseason. That's a good front 3 right there in that rotation.
Look out for Florida, though. Some of the moves that they made over the offseason might make them a much better team. Maybe they even crack 500 this year. As for the Phillies, did anybody see them getting off to as good a start as they have this year? But right now, the reason why the Phillies are over 500 this year, well, one of the reasons why is Michael Franco, one of the best young players in the game.
And how about the acquisition of Jeremy Hixson?
Mm-hmm.
Who's really done a great job in that rotation, that veteran presence that they really needed. You know, overall, this could be the most competitive division this year.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be shocking to see 1 or 2 teams from the NL East in the wild card race.
Yep. And while as those 4 teams are trying to build a contender, the Braves are basically looking ahead to the next 3 or 4 years. Leave it to them to build a team with the farm system that they do. And they've got that new stadium, SunTrust Field, which is going to be about half hour to 45 minutes away from Atlanta, I think in Gwinnett County, that they're going to be playing in next season.
As opposed to them in the AL East, you know, the Red Sox, 74 runs last week they scored. That's pretty impressive. And then the Orioles are just outstanding, too.
And I think David Ortiz should really reconsider retirement because right now, he's the best slugger in baseball.
His 600th career double, in fact, he had this past weekend.
And speaking of reaching double zeros, Carlos Beltran hit his 400th home run yesterday.
Not only did he do that, we apparently had a fight that broke out in the Rangers-Blue Jays game.
Yep, and Rougned Odor wound up cleaning Jose Bautista's clock. Did you see the right hand that he landed on Bautista's jaw.
That was like Mike Tyson-esque right there.
I'm surprised that Bautista didn't go down for the count. But then again, he's always been a really tough guy. And this also goes to show you there's still bad blood from that playoff series last year.
Expect plenty of suspensions and fines to be handed out by Major League Baseball.
Odor is definitely going to get suspended at least 10 or 20 games for throwing a punch. But that's going to do it for all, folks. Kenny Graham on the other side of the glass, thank you. Eric, thank you. For everyone here, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Eric.
Good night, everyone.
Peace.